This is the story of Osu, an outcast in the village of Owedo. How does one become an outcast in his own community? And Osu does not become a community leader in Owedo or engage in any meaningful project in this community. He can never become a custodian of his people's culture in a positive way and cannot get married to a freeborn. How does one become an Osu? There are several ways through which an individual can become an outcast in Owedo. A person who committed an abominable act or a sacrilegious act can become an outcast. A person who suffers from some communicable diseases, such as leprosy, can be ostracized from the community. He or she becomes an outcast. Through losing a bet or bearing false witness can land someone into the outcast saga. Through slavery also can make an individual an outcast. In the olden days in Owedo, the people bought slaves, and when slave trade was abolished, the Owedo people freed all their slaves and they became the Osu of Owedo. In this community, Osus are used for different purposes, one of which was for the pacification of the gods. And this is where our story begins, the story of echoes of freedom, the Osu Virgin Man. Osuwa was born under a shroud of superstition in the village of Owedo, a place steeped in ancient customs and beliefs. The villagers whispered of the day he entered the world, predicting his fate as a sacrificial lamb, destined to carry the weight of their sins. The elders claimed that the blood of an Osu, an outcast, could cleanse the village of its numerous atrocities and misdeeds. Thus, from the moment he drew his first breath, Osuwa's life was not his own. It was a gift and a curse bestowed upon him by the very people who would later come to detest. Growing up, Osuwa felt the weight of expectation bearing down on him. He witnessed his mother, Osu, endure scorn and pity for having given birth to a child labeled as caste. His sisters, Adosu and Enosu, often sheltered him from the cruel remarks of villagers who dared to look down on them. Despite their love, he could see the shadows of despair stamped on their faces. They were bound by tradition just as much as he was. And Osuwa often pondered the injustice of it all. Why should the innocent suffer for the sins of the guilt? In the quiet moments of his childhood, when the village noise faded into the background, Osuwa would sit by the riverbank, contemplating his existence. The water flowed freely, unhindered by the burdens of tradition, and he longed for that same freedom. Each ripple in the water felt like a gentle reminder of the life he could never have, one filled with love, laughter, and simple joys of youth. Instead, he was destined to be the one who would bridge the living and the spirit world, to carry the weight of Owedo's woes until his final breath. As he approached adulthood, the villagers often gathered to discuss the impending ritual that would mark his 30th year anniversary. They spoke of the need for a pure heart to cleanse the community, a life sacrificed for the greater good. Their words hung heavy in the air, an even present reminder that his days were numbered. Each time Osu heard them talk of the cleansing, a knot tightened in his stomach, and a glimmer of rebellion ignited in his heart. He refused to accept that his life was merely a tool for their atonement. Osu, his devoted mother, would often kneel before the village shrines, pleading with the spirits to spare her son. What crime did he commit? She would cry, her voice choked with desperation. He is an innocent child. He deserves a life filled with love and laughter, not one sacrificed for others. But the whispers of tradition drowned out her cries, leaving only the echoes of her despair to linger in the air. Adosu and Enosu, fiercely protective of their brother, would often join their mother in prayer. They believed that their bond as a family could somehow defy the harsh dictates of fate. Yet, deep down, they knew the truth. Osu was trapped in a cycle of misery that they could not break. He was not just their brother, he was the village's scapegoat, the one chosen to bear the brunt of a widow's wrongdoings. As Osu stood at the edge of the village, he gazed out at the vast expanse of land that stretched beyond the horizon. It was a world filled with possibilities, dreams he could only imagine. But he was shackled by the weight of tradition, destined to fulfill a role that was not of his choosing. The burdens was unbearable, yet he held onto a flicker of hope that perhaps one day he could escape the confines of this predetermined fate. And so Osu continued to ponder the injustice of his existence. Caught in a web of tradition and expectation, he longed for freedom, a chance to redefine his destiny, but the shadows of Owedo loomed large, reminding him of the heavy price he was destined to pay. In the dim light of dawn, Osu set out on a journey fueled by desperation and a mother's love. Her heart heavy with sorrow, she traversed the rugged path leading to Mbaga, determined to confront Ezemo Agono, the chief priest, whose words carried the weight of tradition. The village of Owedo bustled with the unusual morning activities, but Osu was insensible to it all, her mind solely focused on saving her son, Osu. As she approached the chief priest's shrine, her heart raced. The intricate carvings and symbols adored the entrance, repeating the ancient customs that bound her family and village. It felt as if the stones were mocking her plight. With trembling hands, she pushed open the heavy door and entered. The faint smell of herbs and incense enveloping her. Inside, Ezemo Agono sat on an elevated platform, dragged in ceremonial attire that marked his status. His expression was serene, yet his eyes held the knowing gaze of a man well acquainted with the burdens of tradition. Osu fell to her knees, tears cascading down her cheeks as she begged, "Please, Ezemo Agono, take this cup of suffering away from my son. He deserves to live, to love, and to fulfill his own dreams, not to be sacrificed for the sins of others." The chief priest regarded her with a mixture of compassion and rigidity, his voice steady, yet tinted with authority of his office. Osu must not marry or inherit property. His very existence is tied to the tradition of our people. His duty is to lay down his life for the good of the community, to cleanse us of our wrongdoings, Nwanyosu, you must understand that this is our way. But how can you condemn an innocent child? Nwanyosu cried, her voice breaking. Osuwa has done no wrong. He is not a criminal. He is a victim of your custom. Are you truly willing to sacrifice him to uphold a tradition steeped in cruelty? Ezemo Arono's expression hardened, and he leaned forward, his voice a low murmur. It is not my place to question tradition, Nwanyosu. The gods demand a price for our transgressions, and Osuwa has been chosen. I understand your pain, but the wheel of fate is not easily turned. This is the tradition of Owedo. Nwanyosu felt as if the ground beneath her was giving way. She had traveled so far, hoping to find a glimmer of hope, a solution to save her son. But the priest's words struck like a dagger to her heart. What if I were to offer my son? Let me be the sacrifice in his place. He has so much to live for. Why I have borne the pain of this life for too long? The chief priest shook his head, a frown creasing his brow. Your sacrifice would not appease the gods, nor would it change the fate of your son. He is the one they seek. The spirits demand a pure heart, untainted by the world, and that is Osuwa. Passion clawed at Nwanyosu as she looked up at him, her heart heavy with despair. What must I do to save him? I cannot bear the thought of losing him to a fate he does not deserve. There must be something, some way to challenge this tradition. Ezemo Arono's expression softened for a brief moment, and he looked away as if contemplating her words. Change does not come easily, Nwanyosu. The spirits are unforgiving, but perhaps if you seek the counsel of other medicine men or find a way to appease the gods, you may discover a path to save him. With these words, a glimmer of hope igniting within Nwanyosu, she rose to her feet, resolve flooding her veins. I will not rest until I find a way to save my son. Thank you, Ezemo Arono, for your guidance. As she left the shrine, Nwanyosu's heart raised with a newfound determination. She would not let tradition dictate her son's life any longer. With each step away from the chief priest's dwelling, she vowed to search far and wide to uncover every possible way to defy the oppressive customs that bound them. The love for her son burned fiercely in her chest, igniting a fire that would not be extinguished until she found a way to reclaim Osuwa's future. In the twilight of Owedo, where shadows danced beneath the fading sun, Osuwa found solace in the tender embrace of Erima. Her laughter, like a melody, filled the air with joy that banished the darkness of his fate. She was a radiant beauty from a neighboring village, where traditions did not condemn outcasts to death. Their love blossomed in secret, hidden from the prying eyes of Owedo, where every whispered promise felt like an act of rebellion against the suffocating customs that sought to dictate their lives. In secluded corners of the forest, beneath the sprawling branches of ancient trees, Osuwa and Erima shared their dreams and fears. They painted a vivid picture of a future together, one filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a family. Their world outside seemed bleak, but in their shared moments, they created a sanctuary where their hopes could flourish. Yet, as Osu approached his 30th birthday, the weight of impending sacrifice loomed larger than ever. Each passing day was a reminder that the village tradition, steeped in centuries of unjust practices, threatened to rob him of his life and love. The thought of being buried alive, a mere vessel for the villagers' sins, troubled his spirit. In hushed conversations, Osuwa confided in Erimma about his deepest longing. I want to plant my seed in you, Erimma. I want to leave a part of me behind. Something that can grow and thrive in a world that seeks to erase me. His voice trembled with yearning, filled with a desire that transcended the confines of their circumstances. But the harsh reality of their world soon intruded upon their dreams. When Osuwa approached the village elders, hope in his heart, they rebuffed his request with cold indifference. You are to die a virgin man, Osuwa. It is the law of our land, and it must be upheld. Your sacrifice must be pure, untainted by the pleasures of this world. Those words cut deeper than any knife, leaving him feeling more like a caged animal than a man. How could they deny him this one simple wish? His love for Erimma was genuine, a flame that burned brightly in a world of darkness. Desperate, Osuwa returned to Erimma, his heart heavy with despair. They will not allow me to leave anything behind, Erimma. They refuse to see me as anything more than an outcast, a vessel for their sins. His voice cracked, the weight of his impending sacrifice crashing down on him like a tidal wave. Erimma, her eyes glistering with unshed tears, took his hands in hers, grounding him in their shared love. We shall find a way, Osuwa. Love is stronger than their traditions. Together, we can defy the darkness that seeks to consume you. Her conviction sparked a flicker of hope within him. We will seek the medicine men and wise women, anyone who can help us challenge this fate. She continued, her voice resolute. We cannot let them dictate our lives. We must fight for our love, for your future. As the stars twinkled in the night sky, Osuwa felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their love had already defied the odds, surviving in the shadows of a village that sought to erase him. Together, they would embark on a journey to confront the traditions that bound him, seeking allies who would help them overturn the oppressive customs of Owedo. In that moment, surrounded by the whispers of the night and the warmth of Erimma's embrace, Osuwa realized that love, fierce and unwavering, could shatter the chains of tradition. With their hearts intertwined, they would forge a path toward freedom, a future where they could embrace life instead of succumbing to death. Nwanyosu stood at the edge of Owedo, the weight of her grief heavy upon her shoulders. The village stretched before her like a tapestry woven with the threads of sorrow, pain, and tradition. Each step she took was fueled by a fierce determination, a mother's love that refused to accept the cruel fate awaiting her son, Osuwa. Her journey led her to the medicine man Okochua in Ajimbo town, a figure whispered about in both reverence and fear. He was known for his deep understanding of the spirit world, possessing the knowledge that could tip the scales of fate. As she approached his humble abode, Nwanyosu felt a glimmer of hope ignite within her. Please, Okochua, she implored, her voice trembling. I cannot allow my only son to die. He is innocent, and this sacrifice is a cruel injustice. Is there no way to save him? Okochua, his face lined with wisdom and experience, regarded her with a mixture of sympathy and concern. The chief priest is the only one who can alter your son's fate, he replied, his voice low and measured. He holds the power to break the tradition that binds your son to his sacrificial destiny. But confronting him will not be easy. He is deeply entrenched in the village's customs and may not welcome your plea. Nwanyosu felt her heart raised at the mention of the chief priest, Ezemo Ahono. He was a figure cloaked in authority, a man who weathered both power and fear within Owedo. But she could not let fear deter her. Her son's life hung in the balance, and she would fight for him no matter the cost. Determined, she returned home, her mind racing with thoughts. She prayed fervently for guidance, seeking mercy for her beloved son, Osuwa. The night, under the watchful gaze of the moon, Nwanyosu gathered her two daughters, Ada-Osu and Enosu. We must prepare for what is to come, she said, her voice resolute. Tomorrow I will confront the chief priest. We need to understand the spirit's intention and seek a way to free Osuwa from this dreadful fate. Ada-Osu and Enosu exchanged glances, concern showing on their faces. Mother, you know the risk, Ada-Osu cautioned. The chief priest is not one to trifle with. If he discovers our intentions, he could turn his wrath upon us. Nwanyosu's expression softened as she looked at her daughters. I understand your fears, my loves, but we cannot allow fear to dictate our lives any longer. We must stand up for Osuwa. He deserves a chance to live. We had her daughters by her side. They prepared offerings for the chief priest, hoping to appease him and gain his favor. Nwanyosu gathered herbs, fruits, and the finest snuff, believing that these gifts would help open the doors of communication between them and the powerful figure who held her son's fate in his hands. The next morning, Nwanyosu set off toward the chief priest's shrine, her heart pounding with trepidation and determination. She could feel the weight of her family's history pressing down upon her, the burden of being an Osu, a title that carried with it centuries of stigma and shame. As she approached the shrine, Nwanyosu hardened herself, drawing strength from the love she had for her son. She entered the sacred space, her heart racing. The air was thick with incense, and the flickering candle light danced along the walls, illuminating the faces of the village ancestral spirits. Ezemo Ahono sat upon his throne, a regal figure draped in ceremonial garb. His eyes, sharp and piercing, met hers as she stepped forward, and the room fell silent. Why have you come, woman of the Osu? He asked, his voice echoing with authority. Osu swallowed hard, summoning her courage. Great chief priest, I come before you not just as a mother, but as a woman seeking justice for her son. Osuwa is innocent. He does not deserve the fate that awaits him. I plead with you to reconsider the tradition that bind him. Ezemo's brow furrowed. Skepticism imprinted across his face. You dare question the tradition that have governed our people for generations? I dare because I love my son, Nwanyusu replied, her voice unwavering. I cannot stand idly by while he is condemned for something he did not choose. The spirits may demand a sacrifice, but I believe that the true power lies in our ability to change our fate. A tense silence enveloped the room as the chief priest considered her words. Nwanyusu felt her heart race, praying for the strength to continue. Perhaps the spirits have a different path in mind, Ezemo Aruna finally said, his tone contemplative. But to alter such a tradition will require more than mere words. It will demand sacrifice, not just from you, but from the village itself, he finally said.